When a beginner starts editing scenes, it's kind of like playing darts. Just keep throwing and hope something sticks. Sometimes nothing sticks, but all of a sudden a technique works and you begin to see the seams of the language of cinema. That is editing. Continuity in editing is really about time and space, making both aspects fluid and continuous. Here Nikolai occupies space in a frame, and we cut to another angle that shows more of the space that she occupies. Time can be overtly manipulated, but our brain still sees it as a linear progression. That is, the increasing number of darts. Match on action, or cutting on action, is the most commonly used cut. It is usually overlooked. All it says to the audience is that when one shot ends, another will pick up where the other left off, making the reality of the film continuous and fluid. A relatively simple cut where the filmmakers employs the audience's ability to assume things. This series of shots usually shows someone looking at something and then what exactly they're looking at. In this way, the audience can see exactly what the character is seeing and what the director wants them to see. Temporal discontinuity can be expressed by the deliberate use of ellipses. A dissolve is a simultaneous overlapping transition from one shot to another. This form of transition, along with a fade, create an ambiguous passing of time. Although trust me, she wasn't cleaning for that long. Ambiguity is removed through the use of captions and intertitles such as 3 weeks later or 1 hour later, if desired. Another cutting technique useful in showing the nature of the ellipses is the fade. A fade is a gradual transformation of an image to or back from black. Through the use of the dissolve or the fade, one may allude to the relative duration of the ellipses. But where the dissolve sustains a visual link, the fade to black does not. Diegetic sound means sound coming from within the universe or the reality of the film. If the song or sound you are hearing is played straight through with no jumps or pauses, while the action taking place is seen through a series of shots, it makes logical sense that the action occurring takes place together with no breaks in time. The establishing shot is one that provides a view of all the space in which the action is occurring. Its theory is that it is difficult for a viewer to become disoriented when all the story space is presented before him. The establishing shot can be used at any time as a re-establishing shot. This might be necessary when a complex sequence of cuts may have served to disorient the viewer. One way of preventing viewer disorientation in editing is to adhere to the 180-degree rule. This rule prevents the camera from crossing the imaginary line connecting the subjects of the shot. You want to see what happens when you break this rule? This is a shot. It's not that confusing, but it is a little bit disorientating. Cross-cutting is a technique which conveys an undeniable spatial discontinuity. It can be achieved by cutting back and forth between shots of spatially unrelated places. In these cases, the viewer will understand clearly that the places are supposed to be separate and parallel. So in that sense, the viewer may not become particularly disoriented, but under the principle of spatial continuity editing. Cross-cutting is considered a technique of spatial discontinuity. Well, that's about it for classical continuity editing. But before we go, here are some finer examples from some of our favorite movies. Thank you.